Shalom, shalom. I'm back with another quick video. Today I just want to touch briefly on a couple of marriage killers or relationship killers that will definitely damage and devastate your marriage and other relationships too, but more specifically your marriage. And the reason this topic came about is because first it was put in my mind to talk about it. It's something that is not always addressed because it requires self-reflection. And of course, there's always another side to it where there may be someone going through this or being on the receiving end of this treatment or actions. But we always have to look at ourselves first and ensure that we aren't perpetuating these types of behaviors and things like that. So I was talking to my husband recently because the topic was heavy on my mind, and so I just asked him. I posed a question like, "What do you think is the biggest thing that causes marriage to like just not work?" And I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, but it was something because this was several days ago. This like probably last week sometime, I believe. But it was something to the effect of cheating. That's probably the biggest thing, cheating. And so adultery, unfaithfulness, stuff like that. And so I was like, okay. It was three main things that came to my mind, three main categories, and everything falls under that category. And I shared what his perspective is, and now I'll give my perspective of what was given to me. And when asking what kills relationships, of course, the general answer is going to be sin. Sin kills marriages. Okay, so if there's no sin in the marriage, then what would be the hindrance for the marriage flourishing? That's the kind of, thoughts that bounce through my head and stuff like that. So, sin is the transgression of the Most High's law. So we know what sin is, but these three top ones I wanted to go ahead and define just so there's some perspective given on the impartial side and self-reflection can take place and stuff like that. And even if it's not something you yourself deal with directly, it is most definitely something you may be able to aid someone else in scripturally and biblically in restoration and reconciliation. When we examine ourselves, then we're able to correct these off behaviors. So the three that came into my mind were pride, selfishness, and deceit. And pretty much anything you can think of that could happen in a marriage will fall under those three categories. Anything negativity that you can think will fall into one of those three categories: pride, selfishness, and deceit. And pride is defined as arrogance, haughty or haughtiness, highness, high-minded, swelling, pomp, pompous, raging, loftiness, exaltation, presumptuously, proud man, to be proud, to deal proudly, a snare, to strut, boasting, to inflate with self-conceit. So we know that pride is all of those things. Nothing. There's another side to pride, and I'll get to that in a moment. But those are the type of things that will most definitely hinder your marriage. Pride is not just um, self-confidence, if you want to say it like that. It's an inflation. It's excessive. It's exaltation of yourself above your spouse. It's exaltation of yourself above the Most High, truly. If you look down on that person and You can honestly say, well, oh, they're not this or they're not that, or I'm always right and they don't know what they're talking about because whatever. If in the midst of your conversation, you have to like spout quotes to, or, say things to demean the other person, to belittle them or make them less than, being very puffed up, being very prideful, being very arrogant. And this can take place not just in direct wording, and spouting these things towards our spouses, but it also can be the connotation behind what you say. It also can be the tone that you take, because you can have a condescending tone, your body language, all of those things. So we have to be very careful with pride because, and I have some scripture references in regards to pride, and that's First John chapter 2 verse 16 and Proverbs 16 and 18. And the scripture tells us that pride goes before destruction and goes before the fall. So with pride comes a fall, because when you exalt yourself up, and the Most High is not the one exalting yourself up. All you have is your ego that you're standing on. You don't have any true foundation, nothing to base that on, but just yourself and your feelings, your you-ness, and you're not greater than the Most High. So you will get deflated and end up right back down here. So it's fine to have confidence in the sense of knowing who you are in the Most High and according to Scripture. It's fine to have so called self confidence. I call it just assurance, not so much self confidence, because that confidence really originates from the Most High. It says every good and perfect gift comes from the Most High in James. So, in the book of James, so why put that on yourself to say, oh, well, I'm this and I'm that, and I accomplished this and I accomplished that. Of course, in conversation, if you're talking about yourself, you speak that way. But we're talking about marriage and we're talking about self perception. And you should never be comparing yourself to your spouse in a greater than, less than, who's better, who's more accomplished, who's more this, who's more that type situation. Those things shouldn't occur, but they do occur. So, and it's not a competition. I think that's what a lot of people need to understand is marriage is not a competition. It's teamwork. And you're not competing against anybody but yourselves, and you're only fighting your flesh. Like that's it. So when we have the right perspective of marriage, then this pride has no place in marriage. And to get into the other side of pride, because there is a side of pride that has a righteous connotation, and the other side of pride can only be successfully maintained through righteousness. And the other side of pride is excellence, excellent things, majesty, and uplifting. So if you're uplifting your spouse righteously, then of course that's a great thing. But the opposite of uplifting that person is putting that person down. So it's all about the intent behind your actions. So we have to kill pride so we don't kill our marriages. All right, the second one is selfishness. And selfishness is defined as being concerned excessively or exclusively with oneself, seeking or concentrating on one's own advantage, devoting to care for only oneself, concerned primarily with one's own interests, benefits, welfare, etc., regardless of others, concern or care for only oneself. And the scripture references I'll give for that are Matthew 22 and 39 and James 2 and 8. And that's basically love one another as you love yourself. Because when that's the opposite of selfishness. The scripture tells us how to be, and that's unselfish. So when you think about selfishness, that can that covers a variety of things. Like I can't even begin to get into all of the things that would cover, but you can be selfish with your time. You can be selfish with money. You can be selfish with affection. You can be selfish with a whole bunch of stuff, you know? And even infidelity is part selfish. It also falls into pride and deceit, but it's part selfish because you're not loving your spouse as you love yourself. So there's a ton of things that can go under this specific category, but when you look at, I guess, like the top three things that people always say, and they have articles and a whole bunch of stuff out there. And if you ask somebody in general what they think are the top three things that end the marriages, it'll be finances, it'll be cheating, and it'll be some other selfish thing because it's not what they thought it would be, or they're not happy, and all of these things. And I said, I believe in my last video, happiness is relative. It might have been the video before that, but nevertheless, happiness is relative. We need to focus on contentment and be happy in contentment as opposed to seeking this feeling of self gratification. That's selfish. It's still focused on self. It's very self centered. So, adultery, infidelity, those things are selfish and deceitful, and we'll get to deceit in a moment. Financial issues, part of that can be because of selfishness, because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes people choose to keep their money separate or hidden, and secret accounts. That's deceitful too, but it's also selfish because you're supposed to be one flesh with the person. You're supposed to be together. So if you one flesh with a person, why are you holding back? What are you holding back? And why are you holding back from your spouse? That safe so-called safety net, that's doubting the most high. Okay, and of course you do everything in wisdom. If your spouse is not the greatest in finance, then talk, come to agreement where whoever's the best with finances, you guys deal with the finances. And if you put savings away for the both of you, then that's fine. But like doing things secretly, that's selfish, that's deceitful, and it's not right in marriage. Now, if you both agree on it, and I'm not saying you making demands and you want your way and all this other stuff. But if you both agree, okay, you have this account, you have that account, okay, all of that is between you and your spouse. But I'm just talking about something general, not specific situations, because everything doesn't work across the board for everybody. But in general, those private hidden things you're doing for a self-serving purpose. Let it be known, just confess and be honest, and don't be selfish, and let it be what it is supposed to be righteously, because whatever little poisons of sin you dropping into your marriage is gonna kill it. It only takes a drop or two of some poison in the water to make it lethal. So you drop in little poisonous behaviors into the river of your marriage, you're gonna kill everything living inside of it. And we have to get out of this mentality that it's okay to do stuff like that. Who told us these things? Like, where did these things originate? Seriously, because the scripture don't say nothing about that. So we have to always look at the origin of these behaviors. take those things into account and then act accordingly. So, of course, on the other side of selfishness is selflessness, and that's to be concerned more with the needs and desires of others more than with oneself, having little or no concern for oneself, especially with regard to fame, position, money, etc., and being unselfish. And I got that definition like off um, the what is the online dictionary. I just googled the selfish definition to put it into to just get a little summary of that because the word selfishness is not so much a Hebrew word. When you look into scripture, it talks about thyself and stuff like that. So that was the whole reason of that. But the point is, it's a self-focused thing. Um, and we have to get away with that. And the last one is deceit. And deceit is defined as fraud, craft, false, guile, treachery, idle, dissimulation, slack, slothful, untruth, a sham, liar, lie, lying, vain, wrongful, delusion, oppression, decoy, a trick, error, subtly, impostor, misleader, seducing, manipulator, hypocrisy. Now, deceit, and I didn't really know at the time, but when you're dealing with a deceptive person, that's a very strong, that's a stronghold, that's a strong spirit that one can deal with, and they'll make excuses and try to twist things, which is where that manipulation comes in. They'll try to twist things to make it seem like something isn't the way it really is, or it's not as bad as it really is, or whatever the case may be. And the scripture references for those, because I don't want to forget to get into that, is Jeremiah 17:9, Psalms 5 and 6, and Proverbs 12 and 20. And basically, deceit is untruth, is a lie. And I've heard it spun before as a partial lie, like telling part of the truth but not the whole truth, which is deceptive. And people would say, well, that's not a lie, that's deceptive. It's defined in the Hebrew as a lie. It's calling you a liar. Someone who is deceptive is a liar. And that can that has like a ton of things that can go under that, and it can be from something so seemingly small as buying and hiding purchases. You buy something and you hide it, and I know a lot of women, and I can say a lot because I know it's a lot. I know a lot of women, and I've done it before myself too in the past. I think I said that in another video, of course, but I know a lot of women who will buy something and then they hide it in the car trunk of the car, or stick it in with the clothes and pretend like they had it for so long. Or I'm trying to think. Oh, I remember one time this one lady told me that she would put her stuff in trash bags and leave it by the trash can, and in the morning bring it back into the house and put it away. I'm like, this is crazy. All of this stuff, all of this deceit, all of this dishonesty. For what? If it's that bad, you should not be doing that. Like, seriously. I mean, that's a bit extreme, you know? I used to have I used to be one that had shoes in the trunk. My thing was always shoes, shoes, shoes. And I still have kind of a lot of shoes. Not nowhere near as many as I did, but enough that I don't need to buy any anytime soon. So, but I would get them so cheap because I have small feet and I would wait for them to go on super sale. So I would get them like dirt cheap and just have so many shoes and didn't even wear half of those shoes. Okay, so it's not so much that deceit is just an outright lie. Sometimes it's something like a trick. That's a trick because you're trying to trick your spouse into thinking, "Oh, I've always had these things. I didn't just buy the stuff, or whatever." And that's wrong. That's sin. So we can't minimize these types of things that we do like it's not that bad or it doesn't matter. And that's just one example given. Deceit can also be where you actually went. You can say, "Oh, I'm going to the store." And all you said was you going to the store, but you went to the store, you stopped by your mama house, you went out to lunch with your best friend and all these other things. And you left out all those extra things and just kept stuck to the store story. So, and this is what I think about. If something were to happen, most have forbid you were in an accident or an accident occurred and it held you up from getting home, or you ran out of gas or had a flat tire, anything. How would you explain that? How would you try to weasel your way out of that situation? When you said you were just going to the store and now you're hour away out to lunch somewhere and your car broke down or you got a flat tire or something like that. Are you going to keep all of that from your spouse? Because now you're just doing a whole big cover up story. That's crazy, you know? And he'll text you, "Well, where are you? Why are you there? What's going on? What happened?" Or call. And, it's like you have to pile dishonesty upon dishonesty upon dishonesty, lie upon lie upon lie, trick upon trick upon trick, just to keep up with your dishonesty because you were deceitful from the beginning. You weren't truthful from the beginning. And you're just digging this bigger hole. You adding more and more wickedness to what you've already done. And these things seem so small, but they're not. Honesty is like foreign for us these days. It's not something that people seek to do. Everybody's so brainwashed, for lack of a better word, we're brainwashed into thinking that these things are okay because we're supposed to be independent from one another and have our own lives and do all of these things, and we can do this and we don't have to talk about this and all of this other stuff. And no wonder everything is a mess because you're out here trying to trick everybody, even the person you lay next to every night, pretending that you're something that you're not, or that you do something that you really don't do, pretending to be honest and you deceitful the whole time. But world standards say it's okay. Bible standards say it's not. And these types of things will build distrust, and will build insecurities. It will plague your marriage with so many different things to the point where it'll be fractured. And not to say it'll be fractured beyond repair, but trust is a hard thing to win back. And it's so damaging. It's so damaging. And betrayal is a hard thing to come back from, you know? And bitterness towards your spouse because you don't want to replay things in your mind, but it'll come back up. It'll Something will happen and you'll be like, "Well, can I really trust what this person says?" The enemy will put that in your mind first thing, like before. "Oh, I'm about to go running, get some eggs, or go grab some gas down the street or something like that. And he'll be like, is that really where you're going? Is that all that you're doing? You know, it'll be distrusted. And when you're dealing with pride and insecurity, when you're dealing with pride, it'll cause insecurity, and selfishness causes insecurities in a marriage, because if you're putting the person down, then they're looking at you like, you're an enemy. You feel like an enemy to that person. You've made yourself an enemy to that person. And it's kind of like, this person isn't really here for me. They don't really care about me. And with the selfishness, it's kind of like, you feel like the other person feels like they're just floating in the ocean without a boat, without anything but just like a life jacket. There's no life raft coming. They're just winging it out there in the ocean. And that's not what marriage is for. Those things have no place in marriage. So I wanted to end on the fact that, wait, did I get to the other side of deceit? I don't think I did. The other side of deceit is truth, honesty, truthfulness, fair dealings, sincerity, frankness, openness, simplicity, candor, and veracity. So I'll end with Philippians 2:13 through 15. And basically, the scripture is telling us to be blameless. And we need to be blameless of murdering our marriages. We need to be blameless of sin and be blameless before the Most High. So, you know, it is definitely hard if you're dealing with that from the other end of things. What we have to ensure is that we're not the ones perpetuating this murder of marriage. We're not the ones doing it. And prayer combats those things. Once you recognize what it is and you know the other side of it, you do the other side of it and you pray against all that wickedness. You pray against those things that come to murder your marriage. You curse it at the root and end those things. And I'll just, pray for marriages in general, because marriage is always under attack. Always under attack. In more ways than what I mentioned. But these were just three marriage killers that were put on my heart to talk about, because a lot of things fall under one of those three categories. And of course, there'll be some that may be outside of that, but for the most part, they'll fall under there. So, if you guys have anything to add, definitely expound on it in the comments. And until the next video, may the Most High bless and keep you and your house. Shalom.